Hey everyone, before we dive in, I wanted to share something exciting. You can now send us a text message directly from your favorite audio platform. Yes. So whether you've got a question, want to give us feedback, or just want to share your thoughts on the show, I'd love to hear from you. Look in the show notes at the very start and you will see the phrase, send us a text. Click that link, send us your message, and that's it. We can't wait to read them. Now, let's jump in with this episode.
So I'm like, hey, I'm not a player. And they were like, no, coach, we don't care. Like, we love you. Sign this and sign this. And so we started signing it. I was signing autographs for the guys. And I was like, man, I really, left an impact on them kids. And I
That's
knew
right.
right then that was my calling. And then on top of that, at the end of the camp, they'd say, hey, come pick up your check. And I'm like, wait, we getting paid?
Today on the show, former head coach at Memphis Day Academy. He's currently an assistant coach and player development coordinator at the famed Three Rivers Community College. Brandon Branch is up next. Welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Adams, and this is where we dive deep into the world of sports, talking with retired athletes, current athletes, and everyone that makes the sports world great. A quick reminder, if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, make a note or go right now, subscribe to the show wherever you listen or watch. You can find all the information at 5thquarterpodcast.com. Now, grab your iced tea or your coffee. Get ready to be motivated and inspired because this is where the real stories are told. Now, let me introduce you to today's guest. He's a former head coach at Memphis Day Academy right here in the Bluff City, where he had a winning record of 51-15 in 3 years. He's the 2016 Memphis Spark Award winner for an individual at the collegiate level and the current assistant coach and player development coordinator at Three Rivers Community College in Missouri. I couldn't be more excited to welcome to the show Brandon Branch. Brandon, welcome.
Hey, Sandy, thanks for having me.
You are quite welcome. I always like to tell everybody how I know you, and we were like trying to figure that out. And um, I think we met initially on LinkedIn. We haven't met in person. You graduated from Memphis as well as I did. And I think that you had just, I think, been accepted the job at Three Rivers Community College.
Yes.
And I was following Three Rivers because Justin Wimmer, who is a former Memphis player, he's been on the podcast way back in the early days of the podcast. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why I reached out to you, just because of those two connections. And we've just kind of followed each other. And I thought that your story would be a great one to play for everybody and just kind of learn about how you got to where you are, because everybody's journey is different. There is
Right.
no one success story or one way to get to where you are. And I think that for everybody out there, it's very helpful and inspiring to hear everybody's different journey and how
Well,
everybody.
I tell you this, Sandy, you've been doing a great job with telling everybody's story.
Oh,
So
thank
I'm
you.
happy to be here.
I really, I love doing this. I didn't think that I was the right fit, but I love doing it, and so I hope everybody goes and subscribes. And anyway, okay, enough of that. So
Uh,
let's talk about, where did you grow up?
Okay. Well, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee,
Yes.
raised in Whitehaven.
Mm,
Um, Teenage years, we moved to East Memphis.
right.
So yeah, that's pretty much my background. I went to school at Overton High
Right.
School. Yep, left Overton my 10th grade year, and I end up moving to Kentucky where I played ball in Job Corps.
Okay, so let's start off like going back to the nitty gritty. When
Okay.
do you remember when you first started playing basketball? Like, when did you pick up a
Yeah.
basketball?
Yeah, 8th grade year. So I guess that's kind of late, because
No, not it, not it. William Bedford didn't start till he was a freshman, I think, in high school.
really,
Yes.
William Bedford also was on Memphis Day Academy with me. He was on the board.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
that.
So that's
Great,
my
great
mentor.
connection.
Yeah, yeah. So I started in the 8th grade. It started in a friend's backyard.
Hmm.
We were just playing basketball, and after that, the whole neighborhood just started to play basketball, and we played basketball from sun up to sundown. And I just fell in love with it, and I became that. I didn't have a goal at my house, so I became that kid in the summertime that I come to my neighbors door knocking, saying, "Hey, can I play basketball? Are we playing
Right.
basketball today?" So yeah, I started eighth grade.
Did you play any other sports before that?
Yeah, so I played Little League football. Whitehaven Dynamites was kind of sort of
Hmm,
the community team. So we used to
right.
practice with them, play with them, stuff like that. And all of my uncles, my brothers, they all played football. So that was my first love. But then I fell in love with basketball.
So I always love to ask this question and understand why.
Right.
Why basketball over football?
Um, I don't know. That's a great question. I think basketball was just everybody had a rim. So you could play
Yeah,
it, and everybody had a basket. So you can easily, but same thing, everybody had a football.
that's right.
So I won't pick one over the other. It just, for some reason, basketball stuck with me.
I'll tell you a little story. And if you go back and listen to Andre Turner's episode, he was going to play baseball all the way up through into his senior year. He was still going to pick baseball after high school.
Ah,
And at the very last moment, he
uh-huh.
decided and chose basketball.
Wow. And a great story about Andre Turner. He's one of the reasons I was able to play for Walter State. He made a phone call. He's a mentor.
Ah,
We got so many connections,
we do.
not even knowing. But Andre Turner made a phone call for me on my behalf, and I ended up playing at Walter State. So yeah, Andre
Yeah.
Turner is a mentor of mine as well too.
I think his episode is number 3. If I'm never prepared to call out the episode numbers, but you can
Yeah.
just go and that's a great one as well. Okay, so you get into high school,
hmm
you play it over. Well, you go to Overton, and then you move to or transfer to Kentucky. Okay,
A job corps.
that's right. So let's talk for those out there that may not understand Job Corps. What
Yeah.
is it, and with why did you decide to do that?
So I was raised by a single mom, and I wasn't the best student at the time. So we sat down and talked about it, and she felt like getting out of Memphis was the best for me.
Mm,
She was like,
uh-huh.
you needed a new environment. My mom was always trying to put her children, and still now, even though we're grown, she always trying to put us in the best
Sure
situation.
they are.
Right. So she was like, listen, you need to get out of Memphis, get in a more, better environment. And it's
Mhm.
basketball there. And she sold me on basketball. She was like, you can go there, you can play ball. It's like a college. And now,
Right.
being where I'm at now, I understand it was kind of sort of like a prep school where you
Hmm.
just living on campus, get up every day, you still go to school. You go to trade. So it was like trade during one week, and the next week was school.
Right.
So it was it was a great experience for me. I made lifelong friends up there in Kentucky with them young.
So how hard was it as a 16, 17-year-old kid
Yeah, yeah. It was
to to not live at home and to live in another state?
mhm. It was hard. It was hard at first, but I was independent. Like
Mm,
my mom raised me the right way. Like
mhm.
she put the right things in me that she knew. And then I had a praying grandmother. Like my grandmother prayed all the time.
Right.
I come from a big faith family. So they knew long as they was praying that God was gonna protect me. So I was fine.
Okay. And so then you decide to come back to Memphis
Right?
and work.
Yes, yes. So
Okay. Okay.
once I got my diploma, I came back and I just got straight into the workforce. I was working at AT&T, making sure everybody got their hours, right? So I was working there, but I still had this dream to go overseas and play basketball because at Job Corps I didn't get any college looks or anything like that.
Right.
So, well, maybe I can just, pay my way overseas. There's a lot of stories going on where you can
Mhm.
pay for tryouts and different things like that. And I was prepared to do that. And one day I'm at work and one of my managers told me that they hired a kid that was only going to be here for the summer and he was going to play junior college basketball in the fall.
Right.
Never heard of junior college, and I was or community college at the time.
Right.
Like, what is that? So they introduced us and they kind of put us on a court one night and had us play each other to see could I really play and all that stuff. And he told me all about it. And, I was quick on executing. I applied for the ICC. I actually went to the school with him, Illawoma, that was in Mississippi. ICC is the
Right.
initial. And ended up going there and was just training for 1 year and transferred to Walter State and played.
See, I think that's a great story because there's so many kids out there
Yeah.
that, and parents and moms and dads, okay, that think that if I don't do it perfect, all
Hmm.
my opportunities are gone.
Right.
And I love the fact that, that story shows that if you have the will
Right.
and you look for those opportunities and you put in the work, those
Yeah.
opportunities can come,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
And I think that, I was raised by a single mom too, through
Hmm.
through the teenage years, which I think are the hardest for a
Yes.
parent.
Yes.
Um, and I think that that's just such a good example of that. How has that experience
Hmm.
played a role in how you coach student athletes today?
Which experience?
The going to the community college, the not
Uh,
not staying at Overton, going to Job Corps. How has that influenced how you coach student athletes today?
I think that makes me more relatable
Mm,
because I didn't have that straight line path.
right,
And and a lot of people don't have a straight line path where you think you're just gonna go straight, but it's valleys, it's gonna be ups and downs. So just understanding that you gotta have a willpower. So
right.
now when a lot of freshmen they struggle first year in college, and I'm able to relate to that and say,
Right.
hey man,
I did. I struggled.
I'm able to relate and say, hey man, look, man, with the route I got to college to play college ball, you wasn't struggling harder than me, bro. I had it way worse than you, and this how I overcame. And also
Hmm.
on the flip side, if we talking about the parenting, when you have student athletes that come from single parent background, I'm able to speak that language as well. When things
Right.
may not be going right at home, I'm able to, connect with them that way as well. So it's been a blessing, and my journey is my journey, and I own it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Um, a little side note, there was something else that happened to you during that time, and
Okay.
his name is Jeremiah, correct?
Yeah, Jeremiah.
So because that's another part of your story
Uh-huh.
that's not the average, I would say,
Right.
but
Right.
it's not unusual either. My
Exactly.
brother, so I'll let you tell the story and then we'll go from there.
So yeah, Jeremiah, when I came back to Memphis, after I got my diploma, I had a son. And that was the reason why I jumped into the workforce so
Right,
fast.
right.
I couldn't just
At 17,
18. I had him at 8.
18.
So I was like, okay, I can't keep chasing this dream to try to go overseas. I have
Right,
to how can I do both? I have to provide for my son and also chase my passion. So
right.
having my son, I think kind of buckled me down to be a little bit more focused on my
Mm,
goals. And I
right.
started paying for trainers and different things like that. And believe it or not, my son was almost at every training session I had. People used to walk in and was like, who's this kid in his car seat?
It's
My
right.
son Jeremiah at like 4 or 5 months would be on the side of a basketball court, sitting in his car seat, like just playing with some toys. So
Hmm.
he really was part of this journey. He's been beside me the whole way.
And what I was going to say is my brother, well, it is what it is. He had a daughter. Well, she
Okay.
was born 2 days after he turned 18 years old. So
Okay.
it's not an uncommon story.
Nah.
A lot of people have that story.
Right.
And it does force you to grow up a little bit quicker,
Yeah.
and do things. And I think that it also gives you, I always talk about, and if you guys follow me on LinkedIn, I always talk about this triangle.
Mm,
And you have your who you are, you have your experience, you have your education, and then you have everything else that made up your life that
right.
adds to that. And that how everybody is different and everybody has something of value to give to somebody. There's somebody out there that needs to hear the story that you tell.
Yeah.
from your perspective and with your experience. So we'll talk more about Jeremiah later. But what inspired you? So you do a year at Walter State.
Right.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from that year?
Learning how to be a college point guard, because
Ooh.
I just wanted to score the ball, right? Because I was playing
A
it.
lot of kids, that's their mentality
Yeah.
these days. The highlight tapes.
Yes, I just wanted to score the ball. Being a job corps, I just score, and so I thought that was gonna be like my ticket. I was gonna play hardcore defense, and I was just gonna try to score the ball, and send me off a pin down or something like that. Let me shoot the mid range shot. But
Right.
once I got up there with Coach Carlisle, Hall of Fame coach, they had just won the region championship the year before, so they
Mhm.
was thinking in their mind back to back. We got to win it again. And he was on me. He forced me to learn how to be a point guard and to get everybody involved. And he was like, hey, if you can't move the ball and you can't play defense, you can't do what we asking you to do, you're gonna be sitting right beside me. So I think the hardest thing was just learning the plays and learning the system. That was the hardest thing for me.
So what would you tell high school students? Because what I see all the highlight tapes, especially with social media now. Okay, the kids to me, and I look at the ones in Memphis, right? They're more concerned about the highlight reel that they post on Instagram than they are about winning the game
Mhm.
for the most part. So how do you talk to a 16, 17-year-old kid that has that mentality?
Of the highlight tapes,
Mhm.
so I love marketing. If I wasn't coaching, and in some type of marketing because
Right,
undergrad is in business management, sports management. So
right.
I'm all for put yourself out there, bring yourself. I'm all for that. But you also have to understand if you're not winning, it's going to
Mhm.
be hard to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So you have
Right.
to focus on making sure you're winning, and you probably can't win by yourself.
No,
So you
unless you're Kobe.
yeah. So you got to make sure you're doing it as a group and you're getting there other people involved and y'all all learning together. So it just can't be. And I challenge kids all the time. I say, hey man, if you want a scholarship, help somebody else get a scholarship.
That's a good one.
Help somebody else get the scholarship, and you reap the good karma that come behind it.
That's right. No, I like that. Okay, so let's talk about what inspired that transition from
Mhm.
okay, your 1 year at Walter State. What inspired that next step? What led to that next step in coaching?
So I graduated with my associate's degree, come back home, and I want to coach. But I never coached before. So Josh Pastner was hosting his summer camps, the University
Right,
of Memphis Tiger camps. It was big,
right,
normally like 400 kids there. And I end up getting a job there to work the camp.
right.
There is when I fell in love with coaching. To see a kid come in on Monday and he can't make a right hand layup, and by the time he leave on Friday, he's able to lay the ball up with both hands. Right.
Right.
And I remember this moment specifically when at the end of the camp, the players come, Shaq Goodwin, Diedrich, all them guys, KJ, Jeremiah, they all come sign autographs.
Mhm.
And I had no exaggeration. I had at least 50 campers come and ask for my autograph. Now I'm trying to be humble because Pashner has flew a lot of camp coaches around
Right,
and they're not getting that same attention, right? So I'm trying to be, I'm like, hey, I'm still looking young. So I'm
right.
thinking maybe the campers thought I was a player that was helping out the whole. So I'm like, hey, I'm not a player. And they were like, no, coach, we don't care. Like, we love you, sign this and sign this. And so we started signing it. I was signing autographs for the guys. And I was like, man, I really, left an impact on them kids. And I
That's
knew
right.
right then that was my calling. And then on top of that, at the end of the camp, they'd say, hey, come pick up your check. And I'm like, wait, we getting paid? So I didn't know we was getting paid for the gig. I would have did it again for free, but
Right,
getting paid was on top of it. So I was like, oh man, if I can get paid to do this, man, this is my calling. I enjoy impacting and helping guys, and ladies about this game
right,
of basketball.
right. So then you transition. What was the hardest part about going from playing basketball to
Mhm.
coaching basketball?
For me, I have to say insecurity.
Mm,
Understanding that I only played 1 year in basketball, college basketball. So I was like, would players listen to me when you have a lot of other high school coaches, college coaches that, played all 4 years in college, probably played in. So I was kind of insecure. And
right.
the way I overcame that insecurity is a kind of embarrassing. I used to play my players for respect. Like I used to like play one on one. To
Sure.
I was like, hey, if I need these guys to listen to me, I need to show them like I can beat them. And so I play on one and was able to show them like, oh man, coach was balling. Me knowing that that was never in their mindset of thinking
Right.
like how many years of college did he play? That was just my own insecurity that I had to grow up from. But
Right.
it was a blessing within that because they saw how hard I worked and they would ask me questions. So like, hey coach, you was really guarding me like this. Or, how can I do that? Different things like that. So it all came together for its good.
No, I think that's a great story, and I'll give you one that matches that. Joey
Yeah.
Dorsey, he came back to Memphis a couple of summers ago, and I had an opportunity to talk to him quite a bit while he was here that summer. And the players, because he was a volunteer assistant on the team for the Memphis Tigers,
Uh-huh.
they didn't know who he was. Now,
Wow.
most of the players weren't from Memphis, but they didn't know who he was. And they would go and Google him. And he played long enough ago that there's probably not a whole lot of tape on him online. But he played them
Yeah.
to earn their respect.
Yeah, that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
Even down to again my first grad assistant position at Southwestern College, where we
Mm,
made it to the conference championship, made it to the Sweet 16, won a conference tournament.
right.
I got that job by playing the best player. During my interview, he was like, his name was Cameron Hunt. He won Small College Player of the Year. He was like, hey, if you can beat me one on one, I'll tell coach to hire you. Memphis. I'm like, hey, let's do it, right? So
Right.
I end up getting a job. I just say that. But yeah, that's what I did, man. My younger years of coaching, I was just like, hey, a little insecurity. So I was like, I'm gonna play these guys and show them that I really love the game.
Well, and that's also a great way to build your own self confidence up in your own mind,
Yeah.
and also, I was just talking to a young girl the other day, and she was trying to figure out how to get more experience. And I said, make your experience.
Hey man.
Make your experience.
Yeah.
You can't, especially in today's environment, you can go out and create your own experience. You may not get paid for it, but it's
Mhm.
still valid experience in your learning. And one of the best things to do is if you teach something you don't know well, you learn it even better when you teach it. It
Yeah,
forces you to learn that better.
totally agree.
And so I think that's a great story of that. So let's talk about then you went, I've got my notes here. I kind of lost my train of thought. So you were student manager for Memphis under Josh Pastner.
Yes.
What's one thing he taught you that you kind of apply today?
Listen, pay
Oh,
attention. That's
yeah,
whenever I ask, whenever I would go up to Coach Pashner and ask him a question, he was like, was you listening? Was you paying attention?
right.
So because I would probably ask him a question he already done answered, right? So he was like, was you listening? Was you paying attention? And he was just more of like being detailed. And also he was able to, he showed me, how to handle the fire, how
Right.
never to look rattled. So that's what I admire about him all the time. Like he was able to lock in no matter the noise from the left and the right. He was able to lock in and be tunnel vision. I liked it that about him.
And there's a lot of noise in the Memphis sports world.
A lot of noise.
A
And
lot of noise.
he handled it well. And that whole coaching staff handled it well. When you talk about Damon Stoudemire, Keelan
Mhm.
Lawson, Coach Kirby that I work for
Mhm.
now, all of them guys was very helpful. And I'm still they still mentoring me to this day
Right.
to the strength coach with, Coach Everest. I was just talking to him yesterday. and Coach Mike that's at Oklahoma State. Like all of these guys, we was all at University of Memphis together. We still talk often, very often.
And that brings up another question is networking. I think that a lot of young people don't see the value in networking. They're
Yeah.
just looking for the most immediate thing.
Mhm.
But, you know, it's so helpful. You don't necessarily need to know every single person, but if they know you, that's such a big help too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I wish that more people paid attention to that and put more value into just meeting whoever. Doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter what their industry is. If that's one bit of advice I can give to anybody listening, it's expand your network,
Mhm.
not just, the people that are in your sphere or in your industry, but
Yeah.
outside your industry. I know people of all different ages and they're all valuable.
Right.
And so that yeah,
And I second that. I wouldn't be in my position right now if it wasn't for my connections.
right.
It wasn't for my village. So yeah, I believe that sometimes people think that's a sign of weakness, for
Yeah.
help, asking for guidance. But I think that's a sign of maturity, reaching out, saying, hey, can I, shadow you one day? I love what you're doing. Can I
Right.
just, maybe reaching out, can I, get the interview or can I internship, different things
Mm,
like that. Sometimes people see that as a weakness and I disagree. Like you got to build your connections, you got to get experience. And like what you said, you can make your own experience. And that's something
yes.
I've always been good at, is just making my own experience and being a go-getter.
Right. Okay, so then you won the Spark Award
Right.
for here in Memphis. So tell us a little bit about what that award is.
So the Sparks Award I wanted for having a positive impact on the greater Memphis. I started my own nonprofit, Branching Out Athletics. And I was doing a lot of things in the community where we would go up and clean Mount Moriah. It's a basketball court where everybody play on. We used to go up there and clean that. We had an AAU team that used to travel all over the South from Memphis, Arkansas, Atlanta, Mississippi, Missouri. And it wasn't just basketball based. We did tutoring. We did a lot of things. We had career people come in and talk to
Mhm.
our players, and that caught the attention of Johnny Pitts. And
Mm,
Johnny Pitts was over. He was the CEO of. He was the Johnny Pitts. It was JP Insurance or something like that.
okay.
Probably butchering the name,
That's
but
okay.
he was able to, recommend me for this award. And after they did the background check on everything we was doing in the community,
Mm.
they're like, oh, you may have a chance to win it. And then I end up winning it.
So what inspired you to start the nonprofit?
Um, Understanding how I was raised and
Mm,
thinking if I would have had an organization to helped me out. And I'm not going to say like my life was bad because I had a great life. Just if I would have been able to experience diversity at a younger age.
right.
Because Branching Out had players from all walks of life. They would have never met each other if they didn't join the Branching Out family.
Mm,
So that was one of the biggest reasons I knew if I had a little bit more diversity and I had a little bit more mentoring in my life,
right.
I would have made better decisions. So that was the mission and for starting it,
So how old were you when you started the organization?
like 21, I think.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this because I
Mhm.
don't know a lot of 21-year-olds that would one know to start a nonprofit
Right,
and two have the gumption to start it.
right.
So what gave you that idea
Hmm.
and what helped you facilitate that creation?
The people.
The
I had
people.
great people in my life. I had Johnny Pitts, I had my grandma. They all came together and showed me how to establish it the right way. And
Right.
that's how we was able to create it. We did a big toy giveaway as well, where we reached out to just a few people in the neighborhood that wanted to donate. And we
Right.
reached out to barber schools, and they came and did free haircuts, gave toys away. It was a great turnout, but my motivation behind it was just knowing if these kids can get some mentoring, they can make they can cut down
Sure.
mistakes.
You know, that's one of the questions I've started asking all of my guests is, what would have helped you
Mhm.
be better in that high school years?
Right.
And you just created what you said would have helped you be better.
Mentoring. If
Yeah.
if I would have had better mentoring, a lot of decisions, a lot of mistakes I made, I wouldn't have made the mistakes.
I'm also going to say this that if you had those services then, you would not be where you are right now.
That's true. That's true.
So, I always try to look at the positive everything and never have regrets. And I think that your your vision of what was lacking in your life
Right.
is helping all these other kids.
Yeah, that's true.
You, so there's always a positive to that. Okay, so you win the award,
Mhm.
and are you coaching then? You just finished up at your grad,
I'm just doing the AAU. That's
right?
it. Doing branching out AAU. So I'm not coaching. I just graduated. Well, I did branching out for about 3, 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And I'm applying for grad school. And that's
Mhm.
when I ended up at Southwestern.
And Southwestern, for those that don't know, is actually in Kansas. It's not Southwest Community College.
Yes.
Um, so tell us about that. How did you get there?
Um, Honestly, I was just filling out a lot of applications like everybody do for grad school.
Right.
Yes, I don't know. I guess it's maybe they don't, but that was my journey, right? Filling out a lot of applications and understanding that I wanted to coach and I wanted a master's degree and I couldn't afford it. So the only way I can get a master's, I had to be a grad assistant.
Right.
So Matt O'Brien reached out to me after he read my resume and he talked about my marketing. He was
Mhm.
said, "Hey, we checked your social media and it looked identical to your resume." And I want to say that to anybody that's watching, you know, whatever your resume looks like, make sure your social media is a mirror
Mhm.
of that, a reflection of that.
Right.
And he said he got over 100 applicants, but he ended up choosing 5 of us. And I was in the top 5, and God blessed me with getting that job. And I was there for a year, and it was amazing. We ended up, winning a lot of games, and it was a great experience. And one of my biggest takeaways for working with Coach O'Brien was how organized he was.
Mm.
At that time, I wasn't an organized. I was a more of I like to call it a machine gun guy, where I just up in the morning, I'm just trying to, you know, I'm just trying to get all of these goals accomplished, right?
Right.
With Matt O'Brien, he was the how do you call it, the sniper focused guy. He
Hmm.
woke up in the morning and he had targets. He wanted to get this accomplished, this accomplished, this accomplished, and he was done. And that's what I learned from him, just being organized. You can't just get up and just go at everything,
Right.
other tasks you want to hit for that day, and then you're good. So that's what I learned from Coach.
One of the things I've learned over the years is I stopped making to-do lists
Okay.
because the to-do lists are never ending and you have a tendency to focus on the ones at the very top.
Yes.
And so I learned because I started working out of my house, gosh, like 15 years ago, and I had to learn how to be organized and be, I'm a pretty independent person, but when you don't have a boss over you,
Yeah.
you can you can lose your train of thought. But I learned to schedule everything. Like if I have, like for instance, this podcast, when we finish recording it, I already know what time this week I'm going to go through and make the graphics. And I've already scheduled when I'm going to go back and edit the video. Like
Okay.
that's already pre planned. So it's none of this, oh, let me write this to do, item on my to do list and then figure out when I'm going to do it. And then look at that list every day because that
Okay.
list is never going to get short ever.
That sounds like a great idea.
It's
Yeah.
I call it the laundry method because, if you take your laundry out of the dryer and you fold it up and you put it away, your task should be like that too. When you get a task, go and put it on your calendar, book a time to do it, and then it's going to get done at the right time. And
Mm.
there's none of that, oh my gosh, I've got to figure out when I'm going to have time to do it.
Mhm.
But that also takes a lot of discipline. And I'll be the first one to say I'm not always disciplined, but I've built that habit so that it's more enforceable. I can enforce myself to do it more than not do it. But that's for anybody out there listening. That's kind of my little 2 cents there. Okay, so how did you end up at Whitehaven coaching with Faraji Phillips?
Faraji. So Faraji coached me in middle school at Lanier,
Okay,
the PE teacher, and he was a basketball coach. So to graduate from University of Memphis, it was a capstone year where you had to get a certain amount of hours to graduate.
right.
So I reached out to him. He was at Mitchell. He had just took the job at Whitehaven. Reached out to him, said, "Hey, coach, I need some volunteer hours to graduate. I got a passion for coaching. There's no other coach in the city I want to work for but you." And he said, "Come on," and I learned a lot. We did a lot of winning there as well too. I can say, man, a lot of people, a lot of coaches that I started with, I got exposed to a lot of winning early.
Mm,
I was
that's
around
good.
winning individuals from Josh Pastner, from Coach Phillips, Matt O'Brien. I was around a lot of winners, and they just took
Right.
the right way. And Coach Faraji taught me how to connect with players. That was his specialty. He knew how
Right.
to connect with the players, and he taught me that.
So what was one of the challenges that, because we talk about winning. So let's
Yes.
talk about the adversity. Like
Mhm.
what was a challenge that you faced while you were at Whitehaven and how
Uh,
did you overcome that?
Outside of playing the guys one on one, because that's when I first started that. Outside of that, I would have to say just expecting every kid to respond to me the same way.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big learning curve for me. It was a big challenge. I always been like this high energy, passionate guy. So if you didn't respond to me the way I was giving it to you, I thought maybe you was lazy, you was
Right.
unhappy, you didn't want to be here, you're not a dog, but
Right.
that's just the immaturity in me in my coaching years. But I had
Mm,
to learn that, players have different personalities.
mm,
The kid that will respond, clapping up, yeah, coach, let's go. He can be very passionate and locked in and happy and want it. But this
right.
kid that's quiet in the stance and he's there, he can want it just as bad or even more. So I couldn't, just look and say, oh, he's talking and he's not, so he wanted more,
Right.
or he's responding to me faster, so he wanted more. Just certain kids was a little bit more, and it comes from a background.
Mm,
So I had to learn, you had to get to know players more. Maybe I can learn why he's so quiet,
right.
why he's not doing this, why he's not doing that. He's here every day, he's on time, but he's not very quick to respond. So I had to learn, you have to connect with the players before you just throw labels out.
No, I think that's great advice. And I think that's advice that works in any team environment, whether it's
Yeah.
sports, business, whatever it is. I think that's very important because everybody is made different. Everybody responds different.
Right.
And everybody's motivated by different things.
Right.
And you never know what's going on with that. Let's talk about then how did you get to Memphis Day Academy?
Connections,
Yeah.
right? All about connections. So they reached out to Coach Lawson, Keelan Lawson, that
Hmm.
was at University of Memphis with me, and they wanted him bad, and they was trying their best to get Keelan to be the head coach of Memphis Day Academy.
Right.
I was moving back from Kansas to Memphis. I was doing some summer camps with the Grizzlies. I had just got hired as like the youth coordinator,
Mm.
and he reached out to me. He said, "Hey, this guy's going to give you a call. He's the principal of Memphis Day Academy. His name is Dr. Canada. He's going to give you the call. Answer it." I told him, "All right," and that's how I went. Dr. Canada gave me a call. He said, "Keenan Lawson said you would be the perfect guy. Let's do lunch." We did
Mm.
lunch. My lunch was the interview, and after lunch, he offered me the job, and the rest was history.
So you were there for 3 years and you had a record of 51 and 15, which is remarkable, right?
Yeah.
What was the hardest thing about those 3 years?
The hardest thing about those 3 years, it was multiple things because you
Okay.
at the prep school level. So number one, the first thing was getting coaches' attention, like getting college coaches' attention.
Because this was your first head coaching position, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
So the number one was getting college coaches' attention, to
Mm.
pay attention to Memphis Day Academy, to want to recruit our players, to make
Right.
it organized, who was serious about player development. That was the number one thing that was on my mind. How can I get college coaches to trust that we're doing this the right way? That our
Right.
players going to be hungry, they're going to be developed, and they're going to be well mannered and high character young men. Right.
Right.
That was the number one because college coaches got so many people pulling their
Mm.
attention. So what was gonna make Memphis Day Academy stand out? And I think it was just the way we carried ourselves. If we was playing a college team, we showed up an hour early. We
Whoa,
was
whoa, whoa. You played college teams?
Yeah, we could play like junior college teams and stuff like
Okay. Okay. Okay.
that. So we would show up um an hour early. Everybody had the same warm-up set on. We would make sure we left the locker room the way we found it. Even though
Yeah.
we was coming in to tear your head off on a court, we was gonna leave it. we was gonna leave it very clean the way we found it, maybe even better than we found it, right?
Right.
So that was the number one challenge, and we was able to get over that with so many kids getting scholarships. And after that, it was a lot of more challenges, I could say, but I learned about challenges that as long as the challenges are not the same each year, then you're
Mm.
growing,
Yes.
right? So one year, our first year, transportation was a challenge, but second year we had developed a deal with a renting with a van renting U van where they used
Hmm.
to rent out the vans for us and stuff. So that was no longer a problem. So we had certain challenges, but they was never the same because we was tackling them, if that makes sense.
No, it does because you over you, life is all about challenges.
Yeah,
You're only growing if you're experiencing challenges. You never
yeah,
want to stay the status quo.
yeah.
Um, and I think that, each year, if you can, I always tell people, even if it's the end of the week, are you
Mhm.
better than the person you were on Monday? On Friday, are you better than the person you were on Monday? Are you better than the person you were yesterday? It's always about getting, to that next level and not being happy with just being comfortable or the status quo. Um, what was the thing that you were the proudest of for those 3 years?
We had over 19 players get college scholarships.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was by far one of my most
Right.
proudest moments in coaching because that was my priority number one. When Dr. Canada hired me, and he was like, "Hey man, we're gonna build a powerhouse," and I was like, "Yeah, we are." And all of my players are going to college, and that was the mindset of just trying to make sure they was college ready. And
Sure.
I valued that over winning, honestly, because I thought if the players knew that I cared about them,
Right.
that they could trust me, and I wanted to see their dreams come true, which was to go to college, I knew that was gonna bring winning,
Sure.
right? So I could have flip side and focus on winning more because at the prep level, you can establish your own schedule.
Right.
So I can pick a million teams out there and just go win, 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 win. And then everybody's pointing fingers at me saying how great a coach I am. But
Right.
none of my players are really reaching their goals. You know, nobody is leaving getting 4-year scholarships. You know,
Right.
nobody parents is crying saying, "Baby, you did it." Right?
Right.
I wanted that to be first. It was, let's make sure you're getting better every day so you can get a chance to get a scholarship. That was every time we walked in the gym. I never talked about if a player made a mistake. I never said that's going to stop us from winning. I said, hey, that may not help you get recruited.
Well, that's a good one.
It was some more of okay, if you close out like that, the college coach ain't gonna wanna. But if you close out this way, he's gonna sit down a little bit longer and pay attention to you.
Right.
So it was
Right.
more of targeting or channeling their vision and inside of the system of Memphis Day Academy. Like we're gonna focus on you, and then the long term that will come with winning.
What so at Kansas State, you had
Uh-huh.
been part of a historic season. So we're just going to back up just a little bit. How
Right.
did how did you in your coaching philosophy,
Mhm.
how did you help elevate the key players that you had on that team? How did you help elevate them to make a better impact on their season?
At Kansas State.
Mhm.
So Kansas State, that's a whole nother animal. You got resources at the tip of your fingers, all the resources that you need. So Coach Tang was able to make a simple vision that
Right.
everybody was able to believe in. And it was simply 1-0. Win the day.
Yes.
Win the day. Get better. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about yesterday. Let's worry about today. Execute.
Right.
And that's what we focused on in that culture when I was there. It was more of just execute each day. And how did that look for us with the guys that he put me over? It was building routines that we can
Mm,
do on a daily basis. So with the guards that I had, like Cam Carter and all of them guys, it was more of working on pre-practice routines, post-practice routines, and pre-game routines. And
okay.
then depending on how much time we had, we can add things, take things away, a lot of film studies and things like that. But just developing a daily routine so we can go 1-0. And we just did that a lot. And then we turned around and looked, we was in Elite Eight. So that's how that went.
So Kansas State, was that before or after Memphis Day Academy? Was it after?
After. Yeah.
After. Um, for you, going from being a head coach,
Mhm.
what was kind of the motivating factor from leaving Memphis Day Academy and going to Kansas State?
I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to be where the best were. You know, and Big 12 is, one
Right.
of the best basketball conferences out there. And I had a relationship with most of the guys on that staff, with Jermaine Dowling, Coach Yuri, Coach Marco, Coach Perry, Coach Tang. They already knew me from my
Right.
Memphis Day Academy days because I was doing so well, and it was, so they Coach Tang reached out to me when he got the job, and he was,
Right.
um, "You got your master's? You finished your master's yet?" I was like, "No, sir, I haven't finished it yet." And he was like, "Would you come down to be a grad assistant for me?" And we're talking like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I'm like, "Sure, I'll come down." And he invited me down. I went and saw the campus, and we sat down and talked. And it was one of the best 2 years of my life. I had an amazing time.
Okay, so for those out there, because I mean, if we apply this to any career,
Right,
it's going from being a manager or a director or a vice president, and you're taking a position that is not in the same standing as those.
right.
Some people would say it's being demoted. What
Mhm.
was your full, because, and it's not, in reality, it is not.
Right,
What was the, what was the deciding factor in you leaving Memphis Day Academy, where you're obviously making a lot of success? You're
uh-huh.
helping a lot of these kids better their lives. So what was the factor that really pushed you to leave that and go to Kansas State?
I thought my son, I thought my son was ready. Because before I was at Memphis Day Academy, I was at Southwestern,
In Kansas.
and I was already working on my master's degree.
Right.
But my son went through a few things at home doing school, and
Right.
I had to come back. So I came back to Memphis for 4 to 5 years, and that's when I was able to build up Memphis Day Academy, but
Right.
also build up the confidence in my son.
Mm.
I know I wanted to finish grad school, and he actually gave me permission to go ahead and finish it. I was
Aw.
he was living with me. He and I just had to rebuild his confidence. And I was like, son, I just got this grad. I just got this offer to go to
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State, finish my master's degree. I really want to get this master's. It's going to help us in the long run. But last time I left, it wasn't too
Right.
like you think we can do it now. And he's like, yeah, Dad, we ready. Yeah. And so that was the exciting factor because I was seeing some success at Memphis Day Academy, but Kansas State was a whole nother
Sure.
piece of the pie. And it was a big deal for me. So I went. But my son okayed it. So I went and did that.
So, how old was he when you left to go to Kansas State?
7th grade. So uh,
12,
12, we'll
12,
say.
13. And that's a difficult age too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other thing is, it teaches him that education never stops. It shows him that, always strive to be better and that you do have to make sacrifices
You
in
do.
order to get, your dreams and that kind of stuff. Okay, so how did you get from Kansas State to
Mhm.
Three Rivers?
Um, so graduated last what was that, 2024 with my uh master's degree in student development. And I heard Coach Kirby, and I wanted to stay around people that I knew.
Right.
I wanted to be around people that win and I can
Mm,
trust. And
mm.
Coach Kirby ended up getting a job here. He won a national championship here. And he was at
At
Kent.
Three Rivers. At Three Rivers.
He
Right.
he played, he won. So he was at Kennesaw State. So they reached out to him and offered him a job to come back to the school he played. And he was looking for an assistant. He needed a second-hand guy, second chair guy. And the connections just started drawing us closer together. And
Right.
had a few other things that I was looking at, and he had a few other coaches that he was looking at, but it just kept bringing us together. And he called and he said, "Man, you done made friends with a lot of people." And I said, "Yeah, coach, I have." And he said, "Man, listen, I'm gonna be in Memphis next week. Let's get together." And I had already knew him because we was on University of Memphis staff together.
Right.
So we sat down and talked, and he talked about his vision and how did he want to get Three Rivers to this platform he was trying to get it to. He said
Right.
I would be the best guy to help him. And then I said, let's do it.
Um, what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far? Because you've been there since August, right?
The,
What's the
June.
biggest June? Okay, so what's the biggest lesson you've learned since June?
Being here,
Yeah.
um, biggest lesson I've learned being here is just having patience.
Mm,
Having patience because I believe at Kansas State, being there for 2 years and you dealing with mature players,
right.
kind of sort of forget how a 17 and 18-year-old think because
Yeah.
it's not that many being asked to produce at that high of a level.
Right.
When you get down to the JUCO level, you dealing with 17, 18-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a maturity gap. And you have to understand, and you have to meet them where they at
Right.
if you want the team to be successful. And so that was the number one thing of just learning patience, seeing back and understanding that, okay, for the last 2 years, I was maybe probably talking to a 21-year-old.
Mm,
I was developing a routine for a 22-year-old.
right,
It was more mature, focused, but now I'm developing a similar routine for a 17, 18, 19-year-old.
right.
So I couldn't, it was unfair to them for me to think that they was gonna get it as fast as that 22 and 21-year-old got.
Sure,
I
sure.
had to be a little bit patient, explain it a little bit better, and teach it.
Right.
And I actually re-fell in love because I always been a great teacher, but I re-fell in love with that teaching vibe again
Mm.
of like because now I'm back to teaching, you know. So that was it was just being patient was the biggest thing.
Well, and plus, the players at Kansas State are playing on a bigger stage
Right,
than the players that are coming into Three Rivers.
right.
And so you also have to adjust to how they were trained in high school,
That's true.
in junior high or middle school or whatever it's called now. So, there's a lot of those factors, but I think, that can apply to, if we talk about careers in general, that can apply to
Yeah.
any team at any level. There's always going to be, learning about how to adjust to each person.
Hmm.
Um, so let's talk a little bit. Let's go back and talk a little bit about Jeremiah. So becoming a father
Yeah,
when you were kind of a kid too, right?
I
How
was.
how has it changed your life from those of your friends? Like, what is one of the biggest assets?
Of having a kid at a young age,
Yes.
it forces you to, okay, I can tell you this. Um, from that 17, 18, 19, young adult, you're done with high school,
Right.
you can have a lot of struggles,
Mm,
a lot of insecurity. You know,
mhm,
you're probably moving away from home, going to school, or
right.
you're looking for a job now and you want to get away from home because all your friends are away from home. So you deal with a lot of things. You don't know which direction you want to go. You haven't figured
Mm.
out your passion yet. But I don't want to motivate nobody to have a child.
No, no, we don't want to do
That's
that.
not what I'm doing at a young age. But I'm going to say, with me having a son after a long day of like maybe I was working or trying to figure out what was the next. When I went home and seen that smile on my son's face,
Oh, yeah.
wipes it away
Yeah.
because they don't know what's going on. All they know
Right.
is my dad is home.
That's right.
And so I could right before I walk in the door, I could be maybe crying or something, or like, man, what
Right.
am I gonna do? But as soon as I step in that door, that smile recharges me, and then I understand, like, oh, this is the most important thing. Long as
Right.
I'm showing up for him, I'm doing something right. So I would say that was the biggest perk of having a child at a young age. Just seeing a smile, it was able to just wipe away all your bad days.
I will kind of help you build on that for
Okay.
because we don't want kids to have kids, right? At a
No,
young age.
no,
But what I will say is that I think for any young person out there, finding something that grounds you when your day is over. I think that that's really what it comes down to. Whether it's your mom or your dad or your grandmother or your friends or even even a sport, right? Whatever it is, find something that grounds you and gives you that moment that you can just, be grateful for where you are and what you have. I think that that's a good because I think there are a lot of people out there that one don't like to be by themselves,
true.
and that I have a niece that's like that, and that was hard for her in high school. But I also think that if we show kids that having some type of environment that really grounds you and looking for that, I think that that's going to help them get through each day as it comes. um, just my 2 cents. So how do you balance being a father, a mentor, a coach while also growing personally and professionally? Like, how do you balance all of those hats?
It's not a balance. I don't think you can balance it. I think the only thing my approach was I'm going to prioritize the most important thing,
Mm, right.
right? So if it wasn't important, I'm just not going to do. I got to take it off my plate,
Sure.
right? And I'm going to only keep the important things on my plate. So my career, my passion, that's important. That's the way I provide
Right.
for my family.
Right.
So I'm going to be locked in on studying, getting better, making sure my players are seeing some type of success, making sure
Hmm.
the program is seeing the success that we need. But then once I leave and I'm at home, I have to understand that if I just spent 10 to 12 hours at work, I have to come home and give at least give my family an hour
Right.
or two of undivided attention and get them all that I have, you know,
Right.
just be an all-around player. The way I ask my players to be an all-around player on the court.
Right.
As a leader, I have to be an all-around player. My players got to get some love. Coaches got to get some love. My family got to get some love. So that's just how I did. I just tried to take things off my plate that's not important and just focus on the things that's important.
Okay. So here's another hard question. Was there ever a time when you questioned whether coaching was the right path for you?
Yeah, yeah. At Kansas State because
Oh,
grad school was tough.
yeah. Grad school is tough. It is.
And K-State grad school was one of the best in the country. It was difficult. And a lot of them times, I was the only person that looked like me that was in those classrooms.
And you're not just going to school, you're
Yeah,
also working.
yeah, I'm working full
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
you know. So it was tough, papers and research papers and different things like that. So that made me question um, getting a master's degree. As far as like,
Mhm.
do I need to be doing this? Maybe I should have stayed at Memphis Day Academy where I'm not on the study I'm doing is film study, right?
Right.
But that was the only time I questioned any decisions. But far as basketball wise, no, I never had the thought of like, am I doing the right thing? Because I know for a fact this is my calling.
Right.
Yeah,
So you got your master's last summer.
I did.
What was that day like? Did you walk across the stage?
Of course, I
Of
wasn't
course. Of course.
don't have to do that. I had my son, had my fiance there. I had of course my mom, right? That's
Mhm.
still parenting to me every day and telling me
They never stop parenting
why I
ever.
don't call her. And I was like, Mom, but I had my mom there, my grandma. It was amazing. For some reason that day, I couldn't believe I was actually graduating with a master's degree. Uh,
It's kind of surreal though, isn't it?
Coming from Job Corps to
Mm.
now a master's degree at Kansas State University.
Right. Right.
I surprised myself every day that I was able to put myself in that type of environment of success. So many different people from all walks of life, elite young
Mm.
teachers, elite young world changers. I was right there with them. And we all walked across that stage and I graduated with like a 3.4, something like that. So it was one of the best days of my life for sure.
So, and always be proud of that.
Yeah,
Like, I think I see a lot of people that don't necessarily want to take pride in what they've accomplished.
yeah,
Be proud of that. And because there's, as I said, there's always somebody out there that you're inspiring, you just don't even know it. And your son is obviously one of those. Um, so let's talk about this. We're getting ready to go to the end of this, but was there when you look back at your coaching career right now, and this is probably unfair to ask this,
okay.
but what has been the most rewarding part of your coaching career so far? If you can think of one moment that really has been something that stands out to you.
the day I accepted a Kansas State job, and the principal of Memphis Day Academy said we had 19 players to get scholarship.
Aw.
That was, and it's going to be hard to top that ever.
Sure.
Having 19 players in 3 years get basketball scholarships, I don't think nothing's going to top that.
No,
Because that's what it's all about when it comes to me. It's all
sure.
about my players. It's all about teaching. It's all about them achieving.
Right. Uplifting others.
Yes. And we was able to do that. So that was one of my proudest.
What do you think your biggest value is to others today?
Being optimistic and being a problem solver. I thought that was normal.
It's not, I
But
promise you.
come to find out what's pretty normal is everybody can point out problems.
Oh, yes,
That's
they
the norm.
can.
So if you have me around, we're not going to be doing, we're going to address the problem. But after that, I'm solution based. I'm
Right.
all about strategy. I'm if you and I we're in a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
say an hour meeting, the problem is going to be 10 minutes max.
Sure.
So 50 minutes of solution. How can
Right.
we fix this? You know? So I think that's the biggest value that I bring to any team. Just me being optimistic and me being a problem solver.
What do you think your son has taught you about life?
How to adjust.
Hmm. How old is he now?
My son is now 16,
Wow.
and just teaching me how to adjust and be patient.
Mm,
And because with him, he has helped me coach a lot. He has made me a better coach because at a time when he was in elementary school, he wasn't doing too good in school. And I
right.
had this one particular parenting style that I was like, hey, this is how I was parent. This is
Right.
how my mom was parent. So this is how I'm going to parent. Right.
Right.
But I had to notice that that doesn't work with him.
Right.
And I had to adjust my parenting style. Then he started making honor rolls.
Right.
So it's the same way I was able to take that into coaching.
Mm,
I can't say, well, hey, this is how I was coached. This how my uncles was coached. No, it's
right.
about understanding the student athletes that I have and understanding how can I connect with them and what strategy help push them up more. So my son was a big reason I was able to learn that.
I think that's awesome. Last question. What would you tell a 9-year-old Brandon? If you could go back and talk to yourself at 9 years old, what would you tell a 9-year-old Brandon?
9-year-old Brandon. I never been asked that before.
I'm all about.
A 9-year-old Brandon. So many ways I could go with that. I think I would tell him, hmm, if I'm being honest, I just tell him you're loved.
I like that.
Think I think that's what I'll tell him. And I leave it like that. I think I just say, hey, you're loved.
I like that. No, I think that that kind of is a great thing. Where can everybody find you on social media and LinkedIn? And
Yeah,
I'll put that in the show notes. And if you're watching the video, I'll pop it onto the screen as well. So where can everybody find you?
LinkedIn is just Brandon Branch. Search me, I should pop up. Coach Uno is the nickname that the players have gave me. So on Instagram, I'm Coach Uno, and Twitter or X, I'm 2B the Energy Guy. So you can reach out.
Okay. Why did they nickname you Coach Uno?
So my grandma used to call me. I'm my grandma's first grandson.
Okay.
So the Uno
Ah,
came, right? And I believe one of my players, when I was coaching branching out, found out about it. That, oh, they call you Uno. So he just started calling me Coach Uno. And it just continued. And I kind of liked the ring, so I kind of went with it.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for doing this. And you guys, you're currently in your basketball season. For those that don't follow basketball, we are in basketball season. When's your next game?
Wednesday, we play Mobley. So we heading out tomorrow, and I'm just kind of looking a little sweat. I just came from practice.
That's okay.
Uh,
That's okay.
play Wednesday. It'll be our second conference game.
Okay, well, good luck to that. Thank you all for listening and watching today. That wraps up today's show. Especially if you've made it all the way to this part of the show, I appreciate all your support. Another reminder to subscribe to the show wherever you listen or watch. My mantra is like, share, and review. Follow us on social media at 5THQRT Podcast. Until next time, remember, change is our ally and it paves the way for greatness. Stay inspired. Have a great rest of the week. Hey everyone, a quick scheduling update. The fifth quarter podcast is moving from a weekly show to an every other week schedule. Thank you so much for your support. I'm excited to keep sharing these amazing journeys with you.